What's going on, everybody? John Eric Polai here with my MMA news, and today's guest is very special to this program because they are part of really a historic weekend here in UFC history. Of course, this weekend, UFC Vegas 23 goes down, and that is historic for the UFC because it's only the second fight in UFC history to be broadcasted on ABC. And today's guest is Jim Miller, who is making history this weekend, and we'll discuss why that is. But let's bring Jim in here as he gets ready to fight Joe Solecki this weekend. So, Jim, how you doing, my man? Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today.
I'm doing well. It's fight week with the way things are going now, so I'm locked in my hotel room here, just killing time, playing a lot of solitaire.
Well, Jim, again, we appreciate the time, especially that you're doing this here on Fight Week. Just a few more sleeps till you have to make weight and then ultimately step inside of the octagon and compete. So we'll start with just how you're feeling right now. It's Tuesday night here on the East Coast. When everybody's seeing this, it will be Wednesday afternoon. So just how you feeling just a few days out from fight night?
I'm feeling really good. This the this fight finally coming, culminating in the fight is it's been a pretty lengthy layoff for me, which is not something that I prefer. I would love to be fighting every 3 months, 2.5 months. I'm the guy that accepts the fights pretty much all the time. Like there've been maybe two over the course of the last, whatever the hell it's been now, 13 years, just about, in the UFC, that I've taken all the fights. Some of my peers have gotten a fight 5 times in a calendar year. I've never been offered 5 fights in a calendar year. So, for me, it's like I was asking to fight back in end of the year. I wanted to fight in December, and I kind of got pushed, put on the shelf, and then got offered the Bobby Green fight on pretty short notice. That obviously fell through for whatever reasons, and then pretty quickly after that, I was offered this fight and immediately accepted. But on one side, it's like I hate the layoffs, but on the opposite side, I feel phenomenal right now. My last time that I was in the octagon back in August, I had a really shitty performance, to be blunt about it. So it was one of those ones where kind of thinking what the hell happened type deal, because I went out, I won the first round. I've had plenty of first rounds that have been, and even other rounds that have been harder than that, and and I gassed myself out. I was done by the time I got to the stool in between the first and second, and that was something that it pissed me off, and I wanted to figure it out, and I've been able to kind of get a little more scientific with my training, and been tracking my sleep, and really kind of working on building a cardio base that I was kind of spoiled that I had, because I've been a professional athlete my entire life. But I think that some of the issues that I've dealt with, like Lyme, they did affect me athletically. It not only just in the fact that it attacked my nervous system and stuff like that, and I deal with stuff from that still today, but the kind of the lack of training that I was doing in those years was really affecting me. 2015, 2016. I think I think I figured out what was kind of happening, because it's you look at my last couple of wins, and it's I'm stopping guys in the first round, but if the fight's going out of the first round, I'm losing. So I think it was kind of one of those things that not training like I had been for the prior part of my career. I lost part of what I had, which was a cardiovascular base that that was there my entire life. So I feel like I'm building that back, and this little bit more of a layoff, I think is kind of a blessing in disguise, and I'm looking forward to showing that. Obviously, when I step into the octagon, I've got one speed, and that's 100%. That pedal goes to the floor. That's all I know. That's all I know how to do at this point. There's really no fighting it. But yeah, I know that if the fight goes beyond the first round, and if it's tough and it goes into the deep water, I know that I can continue on with the progress that I've made in the last couple of months.
And I know that you were talking a lot about different science-based things there, and it's something how science is always changing. The way people train is always changing. 5 years from now, we'll be looking at things a lot different than we're looking at it today, and 10 years from now will be different than how it was 5 years ago, because so many people are constantly studying and constantly evolving how we train our bodies. One of which is the UFC PI, for example. They've been great with the athletes. Obviously, you're a UFC fighter. Have you been going out to the PI and kind of looking at some of the new things that they've been presenting to athletes, or did you do everything all separate and go with a different coach and a different route of training here?
I didn't do the PI route. It's one of those things. It's awesome. It's an awesome resource for us, but it's on the opposite end of the country from me. So it's like I could go out there, I could get some data, but then it's up to me and my team to kind of implement all that stuff. So it's not really viable for me to come out here to Vegas and train for a time period that I feel like it would actually benefit me, at the PI. So my mentor and strength and conditioning coach, Martin Rooney, he helped me out and brought one of his buddies on board, Nick Berger, who's the world's smartest Army Ranger. Dude's he's a dietitian with West Point. So he's a professor there, and he's also done tours, overseas. So he's a badass dude, and he's very, very, very smart, and stays on me, for the work that I need to do, the basic stuff, the lame stuff, like getting 8 hours of sleep, stuff like that. So, it's been a little bit more fine tuned than it ever has been, because like I said, for me, it was, I'd go into the gym, I'd train as hard as I could. And it's like, hey man, I'd come into the octagon. And even though I wasn't, I was never the type to do road work, but it's like 2008, 2009, 2010, 11, like nobody was out working me. So I wasn't doing the things that some people say to do, but it's like I had that base of being an athlete my entire life, and just the style that I train and that I compete at. I had that stuff, and then there was that period of time where things kind of fell apart on me, it kind of got stolen from me, and I feel like I'm getting it back.
All right, Jim. Well, now I want to get into some fight-related things here, and one of which is a pretty unique thing here. So you've made the UFC walk to the octagon a lot, and we're going to talk about that more coming up here. But what's unique is this fight on the West Coast there, it's going to be 9 a.m. when the prelims start. Have you ever, gotten into a fist fight at 9 a.m. or 11 a.m., for example, when you're probably going to be fighting?
A lot of times that's like when I'm training, I'm a morning, midday kind of guy. So, I like getting my work done by 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon and being done with it. And then kind of decompressing and spending time with my family and doing what I'm doing. That's one of the best things about living this lifestyle for me, is that I get the control over what I need to do. And, it kind of sucks, because that's when I perform my best in the gym is in the morning and that early afternoon, and I never fight at that time. And I do get some shit here and there from coaches, like, hey, you should work out when you at the same time you train. But a lot of times too, it's like I don't always acclimate to the time change. I'm usually going to bed when I'm out here in Vegas at 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock, if I can make it, because I'm just I'm beat, and I'd rather just get some sleep. So, it's going to be a little bit different. That I'm not going to be able to eat the typical breakfast that I would eat on a fight day, which I usually kind of like carbo load up and then even like kind of getting in a little bit of sweat, beforehand, before going to the venue is something that I like doing. But, this time around it's going to be, very, very small breakfast and go over and get some work done and perform.
And now, Jim, why don't you tell us about your opponent, Joe Solecki? We know he has a record of 10-2. He's an up-and-coming prospect. Just what have you seen in him as an opponent as you've been preparing for him for this Saturday?
He's a very talented grappler. He definitely is. He's grappled against some of the, the best guys in grappling, around our weight. And I know what his strengths are, and I know what my strengths are. I'm a grappler as well. I just haven't done the type of grappling that he has done. I've only had a handful of tournaments early on when I started training, and a couple like super fights here and there. But I've fought and beaten and submitted guys who have better grappling credentials than he does. So it's we'll see how the fight goes. I'm comfortable everywhere. I think I'm going to have an advantage on the feet. I think I've got an advantage in the wrestling. The grappling is going to be, pretty tight. He's definitely scrappy. He's good at taking the back, which anybody in the UFC takes your back, and you have to be, very cautious, especially when there's, in MMA, right, with strikes involved. When somebody's on your back, you can't see the strikes coming, so it's a lot easier to sub somebody out from there. So, I just have to be on point and use my abilities to out scramble him and try to hurt him with my strikes. And I think it's a fun fight. I'm looking forward to it.
And now, Jim, to the thing that's so historic about this weekend for you, it will be your 37th walk to the octagon. That is going to be a UFC record that will belong all to you. Of course, right now you're tied at the top with Donald Cerrone, and then of course he's going to tie you in a few weeks. I believe his fight with Diego Sanchez is on May the 8th, but you will be at sole possession of that record, at least for a few days. Just talk a little bit about what that honor is like to have gotten to make the walk so many times to the UFC octagon.
It's funny because I've been the guy that's held the title of the most fights in the UFC a few times because he keeps tying me. It's cool, right? It's definitely a milestone. It's definitely something that, pushing 40 fights in the UFC, that's my short-term goal, is to get to 40. It's something that a very, very small percentage of fighters that make it to the UFC will ever even, sniff at 40. Hell, 20 is tough, right? So it's cool, but it's like on the flip side of it, based off of some of the layoffs that I've had that haven't been up to me, I'd already be at 40. That's just the way that it is. Like, I've had, I think this is the fourth or the fifth layoff of 6 months or more that wasn't up to me. I had two, one where I was rehabbing my ankle after the Diaz fight, and one where I was rehabbing my shoulder after the Healy fight. But other than that, the layoffs that I've had that have gone on this long weren't up to me. So it's like a lot of those times I could have fought, another time in the middle and still fought. So I'm definitely confident that I would be even further up. If I got to fight when I wanted to fight at the pace I wanted to fight, I'd be at 40 and probably past that at this point.
So part of that answer there that you were talking about was number 40. You said that's the short term goal to make that walk 40 times. I did want to ask about this a little later on, but since we're on the topic of it now, I'll ask now. You alluded earlier. You said how people like Kevin Holland, for example, they got 5 fights in a calendar year. You were never presented that, but do you think, given that this is number 37, 40 is only a few away, can you possibly hit your 40th UFC career fight this year in 2021?
Potentially. It's yeah. If they offer them, I take them for the most part, right? So it's like there's a few things that will keep me from accepting a fight. And most of that is just like, injuries and stuff like that. But, I've kind of fallen in love with elk hunting. So, September kind of sucks. My wife would probably rather that I fight as opposed to like going up into the mountains for 2 weeks by myself. But, it could happen, like definitely, like you said, I don't look past anybody. Every fight is the most important of my career. I'm definitely that type that I focus on what is in front of me and, the task that I have at hand. But I definitely would like to, I'd like to fight on that card, McGregor and Poirier 3, in the beginning of July there. I think that's perfect timing for me. Come out of this one healthy, and then get another one in, and then, hopefully get at least a third one by the end of the calendar year.
And now, Jim, what's crazy to think with all of this throughout your career, which has obviously been an extremely active career, like you've said several times, but you would think, okay, you're completely healthy during this whole entire run. Well, it wasn't actually always the case, because you suffered from Lyme disease. You didn't even know you were going through it. So I guess, number one, how exactly did you get Lyme disease? And number two, here you are right now, 37 years old. You probably feel better now at age 37 than you were when you were younger in your career and you were battling this disease. So just how much better do you feel now that you have this under control?
It was a pain in my ass, So I probably got bit. I'm pretty confident because I never found a tick on me. I never got a rash, which is just about half of people. That's the way that it goes. In 2013, knowing what I know now about the early onset of Lyme disease, I had a series of like migraines and fever-like symptoms for a few days, and I got checked out. I got tested. We did a whole went to an ENT, went to a neurologist, checked some stuff out. They did a bunch of brain scans and stuff like that. We didn't see anything. So it was kind of just keep an eye on it. And over the course of the end of 2013, 2014, started to kind of creep up and kick my butt a little bit. And it wasn't until about beginning of 2015 when it started to really knock me on my ass. So it was kind of just talking to my doctor leading up to UFC 296. Went in for my physical, and I was telling him about some of the things I was dealing with, and fortunately he was willing to give it a try, and basically I was out in Vegas, to fight Diego, and I had the worst camp of my life, barely trained for that fight, and he called me up on the Wednesday, and he's like, "Yeah, I think you got Lyme disease." After we ran a bunch of tests, stuff like that, when we got the blood work back. So I got back. We took a course of doxycycline, and I felt after about 6 months, on doxycycline, I felt way better than I had, before that. But now I look back at it, and it's I went from 20% to maybe 40%. And it felt like it was day and night because I was operating at, double what I was, prior to going on the medication. But prior to going on the medication, I was probably at 25%, 20% of what I was capable of. So it took a bit longer, of I changed my diet. I eating a lot more vegetables and avoiding alcohol. I still have beer here and there and stuff like that, but like I used to have a beer with dinner, or one or two, like, and that was the norm, because it's like, hey, I'm cooking, I'll have a beer, I'll have a glass of wine. I started to notice that it was, kind of affecting me, and so I just minimized that, stay away from, dairy and gluten and stuff like that. I still eat it, but because I'm still like the type that I think that everything in moderation, really. But yeah, like through a process that it took probably about 2.5 years to start to feel like I was coming back, and like I said before, like that was still that I lost something. I lost something in that time that I didn't know that I didn't know that I lost it. I didn't know that I lost that base, So, it was kind of like just I've been rebuilding over the last few months and trying to get back and trying to optimize what I'm capable of. But yeah, it's one of those things. I try not to. I want to educate people on it. I want to talk about it and be an advocate for it on one side, and the other side is like, man, it's my road, right? And like nobody else has to deal with what I've had to deal with, and I don't have to deal with what they have to deal with. Like, I've got 4 kids, and thankfully they're all healthy, right? I know of other fighters that have had to deal with things that I'd say are a lot worse than Lyme disease. Like as shitty as it is to have it as being a professional athlete, like, like I was just thinking about a couple weeks ago, and I changed my Instagram. I am the world's foremost, expert on competing in high-level combat sports with Lyme disease. Like, there's not a soul on the planet that knows what it's like to be having a Herxheimer reaction while you're fighting. That's something that I hope nobody ever else has to deal with. But yeah, like if somebody wants some information on it, I can share it with them. But it's not fun.
Well, we're glad that you have gotten that all under control now. And now, Jim, I would like to actually turn your attention to something outside of the cage. So a few weeks ago, I interviewed Scott Holtzman. He's a former opponent of yours. He's also fighting on this weekend's card. And in the lead up to the fight, we're having a conversation like I do with all the fighters. And it turns out that he said it. He's the best barbecuer in MMA. He made that claim. As soon as he said it, Eric Kowal, who runs MyMMANews and helped set this interview up, he tweeted back and said, how about we do a grill-off between you and Scott Holtzman? Would you be down for that?
I would definitely be down for it. Yeah. I actually, I'm pretty sure I called Poirier out to cook some Creole food. Like I love food. I really do. Believe it or not. It's I'm not going to say that I'm better than anybody at cooking, because the funny thing is like I have 4. I'm one of 4 siblings. I have three siblings. 2 older brothers, a younger sister, and both of my parents. And out of the 6 of us, I am the worst cook. And I think that I'm pretty good. But I know for a fact that they're all better than me. And it's one of those things that I enjoy doing, and I enjoy the challenge of cooking. And I think that food and cooking is going to be something that I, in some way, shape, or form, post fighting, that it's going to be a part of my life. It's going to be a part of what I do. There's really nothing like sharing food with people. Like I enjoy it so much. The satisfaction that comes from putting effort into it, and and allowing others to enjoy it. It's pretty cool. So.
And Jim, I know you're always trying to get your cooking skills better. And what's funny is, before we came on air here, we were having a conversation. I'll share it with everybody here. I mentioned to you, gave you the heads up that we were going to be talking about this topic. and I just wanted, to make sure it was okay because you're in the middle of cutting weight. I didn't want you to, get grouchy because of thinking about food when you're dieting. Here it was you tell me, oh no, you're watching the Food Network while you're cutting weight because you're always trying to get better at cooking. So, given all these years of watching the Food Network and grilling so much and evolving your cooking skills, do you have like a specialty that you'd like to share with everybody, or a recipe that is your go-to that you're really good at?
I don't know. I try to think of like the best thing that I make. Like people lose their mind over the mac and cheese that I make, but the mac and cheese that I make is not healthy at all. It's like really ridiculously unhealthy, and that's why it's so good. But I think that probably has like the biggest reputation, because I've also shown it quite a bit. Yeah, I don't know. Like, there's really nothing like the simple things. Like, one of the best things that I enjoy making, and that I think that people that I've shared it with, is just a venison backstrap. Like because it's not only just the cooking process with it. These are animals that I've personally taken and then field dressed and butchered and cared for and stored away, and like once the animal's down, it becomes a product. It becomes meat. So I'm very like cognizant to that it needs to be treated well. And I feel like sometimes the people that have had bad experiences with game in the past is, it wasn't always cared for the best. But like I've gone to, people's houses and like just grill up some seasoned up back straps, and cook them to a perfect medium rare, because, you got to have a thermometer and, slice them up, put them on a cutting board, and like seeing people that have never had venison, or maybe had a bad experience with it in the past, they said they didn't like it or this or that, seeing them absolutely devour it and then talk about it, and like you kind of change the way that they think about it, is awesome. It really is, especially because, like I said, cooking is awesome, because I like to put effort into something that I share with people, and then when it's game that I've hunted, there's that extra aspect to it, because it's something that maybe I suffered in the tree stand for a little bit for it. Maybe I busted my butt, getting this thing out, or this and that, or put a lot of time into hunting that specific deer or something like that. So it adds an extra dynamic to it, and like I said, it's super simple. It's not like you're doing anything crazy, but if you do it right, like seeing somebody's, the gears start turning, and like, oh man, maybe I do like venison. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, venison is amazing. I could, obviously talk from being from Pennsylvania. Jim, you're from New Jersey. Hunting's really big out here on the East Coast, and just to put in perspective, if anyone's watching this, it's not from the East Coast. Jim, I'm sure it was the same way in New Jersey as it was here in Pennsylvania. But the Monday after Thanksgiving, we used to always have off from school because that was such a big day to go out and hunt. Now, Jim, you're the hunter here. I'm not, and I wish I was, and I wish somebody in my family was, because I love venison. You were alluding to it there. To tell everybody about the deer meat and all that, you have ribs, jerky, people have made steaks with it. Just kind of tell everybody, what are some of the different things you could do with venison?
We had just moved like right at the beginning of COVID. So, we got this like 150-year-old property, and everything's not kind of sorted out and set up yet. Cause I kind of a bit of an asshole when it comes to like my cooking stuff. Like I could have a small restaurant with the shit that I own, but so I was successful this year. I got a bear, and I got a couple deer and stuff like that. So I've been planning on making a bunch of different types of sausage, some chorizo, andouille, lassi. So that's all on deck. So once I get back once I get kind of my space where I can do everything and not have to like step over stuff, I'm gonna have Sausage Fest, and I'm gonna be making probably like 80 pounds of wild game sausage. So I'm pretty pumped about it.
All right, Jim, we appreciate all the time here today. I think we're coming up here on a half hour. If we haven't hit the half hour mark already, it's funny, when we started doing this interview, I didn't have the lights on here in the studio because there was natural sunlight coming in through the windows, but now I got to flip the lights on here because sun's starting to go down now. But Jim, I appreciate all the time that you gave us here today. Last thing before we roll out, social media, management, sponsors, anything like that that you want to plug, please feel free to do so. I'm
on Instagram. I don't really fiddle with the other ones too much anymore. So Jim Miller _155. When I'm active on there, but I'm kind of bad with it. So.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. That was Jim Miller. Jim, thank you so much for all the time that you gave us here today, because that was a very lengthy interview with fight night fastly approaching here, or I should say fight afternoon. And just to remind everybody, I know I said it earlier in the interview, but Jim's fight, he headlines the prelims. Prelims begin at 12 noon. They are on ESPN. Then at 3 o'clock, the main card will air on ABC. Make sure you guys watch that this Saturday. And just one other thing that I want to remind everybody before I roll out here, subscribe to this YouTube channel so you can get alerted and see more great interviews just like the one you just watched. And also, if you haven't done so yet, please go to MyMMANews' social media accounts. Give us a like, give us a follow. We appreciate all of that. And make sure you keep going to our website because we have great content that comes out there 7 days a week. We'll see you later, everybody.